Hello everybody, this is starting here, here for lesson 5 of your plants lessons with myself. Okay, hope you're well. I hope your bean investigation that we started last lesson is showing some signs at the moment. It's hopefully germinating in that jar nicely. I tried to do the same investigation actually over the summer. And what I found was I actually watered it too much. So hopefully you'll learn from my advice and don't water it too much. You only want that paper towel to just be a little bit soggy, just enough for the bean to be able to germinate in the jar and you can see it growing. So let's get started on today's lesson. If I just screen share here. Ooh, there we go. There we go. Right. Nope, just waiting for the PowerPoint to start. Brilliant. Okay, so what are you going to need today? Just a paper and pencil today. That's all we need. We're mostly going to be taking notes today. So as I go through the slides, I'll tell you what I would like you to copy down. All this is important because when we do lessons later in the unit, you'll need to know what plants need to survive. Okay, see what you can remember first, okay? We had this slide in the last lesson. So what does a plant need to live? Pause the video here and write down everything that you can remember. Okay, shall we have a look? So, what a plant needs to live? Well, it needs water, it needs sunlight, oxygen, which when we get into our photosynthesis lesson later on, you'll see why. Room to grow, or space. Carbon dioxide, one of those gases, well done if you remembered that. And nutrients, which it gets from the soil, well done. Okay, next part. Can you remember all of the Mrs. Gren life needs? I couldn't get my words out there. So what every letter in Mrs. Gren stands for. Pause the video, off you go. Okay, see if you can remember. So we had M for movement, R for respiration, which means breathing, S for sensitivity, G for growth, obviously all living things grow, R for reproduction, the ability to be able to, in plants in this case, make seeds, E for excretion, and N for nutrition, because it needs to be able to get its food. Well done if you can remember all of those. If you haven't been able to remember those, just pause the video, copy those down again. Okay, what do we need for our vocabulary today? So get ready to write these down. Nutrition, nutrients, environment, habitat, sunlight, oxygen. Okay, write those down now. Okay, we ready? Oh, forgot carbon dioxide, so just make sure you write that last one down as well. Okay, so this is what I'd like you to be writing down today. So I'll go through quickly what everything needs and what happens if you don't have something when the plant is growing. But make sure you're writing these down as I'm going. So what would happen if I let my bean plant grow in the dark? Now, the bean plant would stretch towards any available light. It will get quite long and thin. It's basically trying to reach the sunlight. The bean plant stem would be pale, which means a sort of white color, much paler than the green that you'd expect from a plant. And that's because of the lack of sunlight. It hasn't got the right levels of sunlight it needs to be healthy. Without sunlight, the plant can't perform photosynthesis, so it won't be able to create the sugars it needs to survive. This is more long-term. Eventually, it won't be able to live very long, and eventually that plant will die. So pause the video now, write down all of those points. Okay, if you've all got that all written down, because it's very important because you need to come back to it. Brilliant. Let's move on. So next, what would happen if I let my bean plant grow without enough water? Well, the bean plant tips and leaves will dry out and they turn brown. The plant will grow very slowly and also it would be quite withered, which means that it won't really be able to stand. It would sort of fall down around the jar or the pot that you're growing in. And it would still grow, but struggle to grow, to stay alive for very long. So Again, write these down, important for the activity that's coming up later. Pause the video now. Okay, got all those written down? Fantastic. So last one you need to write down. What would happen if I let my bean plant grow without soil? Now, you are doing this for your investigation, obviously, because you're watching it germinate. But if you were to try and just grow a bean plant in general, what would happen? Well, the bean plant would still grow, but it still needs those nutrients because they need protection from the environment and they need moisture. So eventually, again, the bean plant would die as a result. But you would be able to see it growing for a while. It would be quite pale again. Right, write down those points now. Okay. Ready to move on? I hope you wrote it all down because now we're going to test you. So what would happen if I let my bean plant grow in the dark? Well done. If you can remember all these points, the bean plant would stretch to walk towards any available light. The bean plant stem would be pale because of lack of sunlight. Without sunlight, the plant can't perform photosynthesis, so it would be able to create the sugars that it needs to survive, and eventually the plant will die. What would happen if I let my bean plant grow without enough water? I can hear you calling it out, saying everything that you've written down. Well done. The bean plant tips and leaves would dry out and turn brown. The plant will grow slowly, and it will still grow, but struggle to stay alive for long. And we said it would sort of wilt as well. It would be very floppy and not really be able to stand up straight. And what about without enough soil? Well, it would still grow, but the ones in your jars hopefully are, but it would need nutrients still, because they need protection from the environment and need moisture. So eventually that plant won't be able to last very long. Now you might be thinking, but Mr. Started, in my wonderful investigation that I've started, I can see it starting to grow. Yes, because that jar and the paper towel that we used is giving your bean some protection in a similar way that the soil would. But trust me, if it was outside, it wouldn't be the same. It would struggle, and lots of animals eat seeds. Even my cats managed to destroy some of the ones I was growing. So it needs protection from the soil, and that's normally in the soil. Now you get putting it in a jar, which gives it a bit more protection than it normally would get if it was outside, but still it needs that soil for the nutrients as well. Okay, let's see if your observation skills are up to task now. So this is a key scientific part, and it shows if you're a good gardener as well. What is my plant missing? So number one, okay, pause the video, write down what you think the plant is missing. Okay, so let's have a look at it together. Now, that plant is not standing up straight. Okay, so that could be a lack of sunlight, or it could be a lack of water at the moment. But I don't think it's a lack of sunlight, because the color isn't pale. There's a little bit of pale around the stem, but not too much. And also, it's not really stretching this plant. So it's wilting. The leaves of the plant are quite brown. Therefore, I think it must be lack of water. So well done if you wrote down lack of water and you gave an explanation why. Okay. So what I'd like you to do now, pause the video, explain how you know that a plant has not got enough water in your own words on your piece of paper. Off you go. Finished? Hopefully use lots of this key vocabulary that we looked at the start. Okay, now for another one. So what do you think is wrong with this plant? Now I'm looking at the one on the right. What do you think is wrong with that plant? Pause the video, write down what you think it is missing and why you know that. Okay, this might look a bit similar to some of your beans, although maybe you haven't quite got there yet. So the one on the right, now compared to the one on the left looks healthy. It's a nice green color. It's standing up straight. It looks like it's got everything it needs, but the one on the right doesn't so much. Now, let's have a look at why. Now, it seems to be stretching. It's quite pale. I mean, the stem's quite thick actually, but it's quite pale and it's stretching. That suggests it's a lack of sunlight. It has been somewhere dark and it has been stretching for that sunlight. So well done if you wrote that down. Okay, is this always the same with all plants? Well, we looked at the fern and the cactus a little bit last lesson. What I'd like you to do now is write down what you think each of these plants needs in order to survive. Now, all of them need all three parts. Again, they all need nutrients, they all need water, they all need sunlight. What do you think they need more or less of depending on the plant? So, for example, the sunflower needs everything. It needs a lot of sunlight, it needs a lot of soil, because it grows very tall as well, and needs a lot of water. So that needs all three. So you can write down, I know the sunflower needs a lot of water, a lot of sunlight, and a lot of soil space. I know this because the sunflower grows in summer months and faces the sunlight, so therefore it shows it needs a lot of sunlight. Can you do the same with the other three plants? What do you think they need more or less of? Pause the video, write down your answer. Okay, so let's go through them one at a time. Now the cactus, we went through in the last lesson. The cactus doesn't need as much water. Well done. Yes, it lives in the desert. Can you remember how long it can live for without water? A year. Yeah. So cactus needs water, but it doesn't need as much water because it can survive for up to a year by storing that water. It needs a lot of sunlight, and it clearly needs the ground, the soil to be able to grow. How about the fern? Yes, well remembered. So a fern grows in dark places. So it doesn't need as much sunlight as the cactus or the sunflower does. It does need water, and it does need soil definitely to grow. It actually needs quite a lot of covering though from the sunlight in order to grow properly. What do you think would happen if you grew a fern in direct sunlight too much? It probably would wither, which means it would dry up. It can't stand that much sunlight. So what about the water lily? Got the clues in their name. The water lily needs a lot of water. Normally they grow around lakes or rivers, so that they need a lot of water in order to survive. Much, much more than the cactus does, certainly. So well done if you wrote down the water lily will need a lot of water. It still needs soil and it still needs sunlight. Okay, that's it for today's lesson. Next lesson, we are going to be looking at pollination and seed dispersal, focusing more on the pollination side. And for that lesson, you're going to need paper and pencils as normal. So that's the end of our lesson today. I hope your bean investigations go well, and do remember to keep observing them and writing down what you are finding as you go through the days. Now that you've looked at what they need, have a look at your bean investigation and wonder if your bean actually needs something more. Does it need a little bit more light, perhaps a bit more water, or does it need less light or water? Obviously I haven't got any soil, but some of you may want to try and transfer that into soil as well. So that's it for today. I will see you in the next lesson. Goodbye for now.